The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star. Now your host, Nicole Hutchison.
Hi guys, welcome to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Nicole is out today, so I'm Jess Navarez, your host. I'm steering the ship. Hope to not disappoint. I have plenty of puns, but I have Aisha Morrison and Jazz Monet. I'm not going to try to say it like Nicole here with us in the studio today. Ladies, how was your Halloween?
Pretty uneventful.
Yeah, love that.
Dang. No, I didn't even have no kids. I bought a little bit of candy.
Yeah?
I really don't do the. I never celebrated Halloween as like growing up, but I do understand just like what it means for some kids. So I was just like, I put a little bit of candy out there, and no kids were like. Have you seen that a lot of people are saying like not as many kids are trick or treating and stuff?
Wow.
Oh, really? Maybe they're just going to events.
Yeah.
There was barely any kids in my area that were trick or treating.
Interesting. I don't know because I've never done the trick or treating, put out candy thing.
Yeah.
In Austin, I had this friend who would every year have this epic Halloween party. And so I just didn't do nothing this year.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Well,
honey.
I had to work a trunk or treat for my other job, and it was so cool. Like, there were so many kids. I'm like, all the kids were over there with me, like, getting handfuls of candy. I was like, guys, one per kid. Like, we're running low on candy. I mean, they were, like, glopping it in the bag. But at the end of the day, everybody got candy. It was good. But I didn't get to celebrate Halloween with you guys, and this is my last chance to wear this shirt. So, 'tis the season.
I'm tired of her.
The best season. But you know what was more spooky than Halloween was yesterday, ladies? That
The injury report
that just dropped.
I was picking up what you was putting down, sister.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same vibe today. All right, ladies, that injury report just dropped a few minutes ago. Officially ruled out for Sunday's game against the Falcons. Deron Bland still dealing with that foot injury. Micah Parsons still dealing with that ankle. Jordan Phillips, I'm sorry. Wrong guy. Jordan Phillips also out. Listed as questionable. You have Trevon Diggs with a calf injury, which we'll get into. Linval Joseph, Eric Kendricks, Zach Martin with a shoulder, and then Nick Vigil with a foot. Interestingly enough, we heard from Jerry Jones on The Fan this morning, who said that Troy is dealing with a tear in his calf that happened in the 49ers game. So, ladies, I'm going to defer the floor to you all. What does this mean officially not having Deron Bland again in this matchup, but also potentially not having Trevon Diggs out there in that backfield?
I think it means that the Atlanta Falcons are going to try to throw the ball around. I mean, I think whoever ends up back there is going to for sure get tested. Outside of that, we don't really know because we haven't seen this particular situation. Oh, wait, did you mention Trevon not being there?
Yes.
Yeah. If he's not there, we don't
right.
really know. We have yet to see that. And the other corners, each of them has had their struggles. And Kalen Carson's been the best, of course, but even he's had his struggles a couple times. So, yeah, I see the Falcons trying to test the secondary, and hopefully the corners pass that test at least decently. They don't have to be 100%. They don't have to be perfect. But, like, if they can just keep the score from getting out of hand, that's what we need, pose that much of a threat.
Oh, goodness gracious. I mean, sisters, it's...
What do you think about the possibility of Izzy being back there? 'Cause that's what some people are saying.
I mean, I love me some Israel Mukuamu. I've always wondered why he didn't get the opportunity to show what he was drafted as a corner. And, that program down at South Carolina, they're feisty, and I wanted to see some of what he was able to do down there here in a Cowboys uniform. So it does present a unique opportunity for him specifically to play his original position and to show that he can do that. I am fine with getting a look at it because it's going to, if it does work out well, then you have another depth piece there where clearly at corner you're thin. So we don't know what's going to happen. I would bet that might be the best choice if Trevon Diggs can't go. But as far as Trevon not being there, this is serious. Like, especially with him coming back from an ACL and things like that. I don't know if it's on the same leg. I would like to know because I
we're
know
digging
that
to find out.
Yes, because
I
I know.
sent a couple texts out to find out. So
Okay,
hopefully
because-
we'll know before the end of the episode.
I was always worried about him coming back relatively quickly from the ACL because I know there's been so many medical advancements and guys are coming back from various injuries so quickly. But for him to be back, not even just in games, but even at training camp before a year had even passed, that always felt like a lot. But he seemed to be okay, so I was like, all right,
It's normal at this point.
yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to call it normal. It happens.
What I'm saying,
It
it's
happens.
normalized.
Yes, it is. It has been normalized. I don't know if that's the best
agree with it.
thing.
Yeah.
And the way that guys seem to be experiencing subsequent injuries after things like an ACL is part of the reason why I'm saying that. I'm not just saying that based off like old science and timelines. I'm saying like what we've seen from guys when they come back from an ACL injury before a year is that maybe they can play technically, but they're usually not that it's not the same level of athletic performance, and they usually end up suffering some subsequent injury, even if it's a minor one. You know,
for me, it's always the mental aspect of it too, because the guys you've talked to in the locker room, even or guys that came off of that injury, I always think of Michael Gallup when I think of this specific aspect of injuries and coming back from them. Is the mental hurdle is so difficult, and even just training muscle memory and not being afraid to do things you did before, whether you realize you're afraid or not, that fear can still be lingering in your muscle memory. And so a lot of that really worries me. But ladies, looking at the depth chart here, your Dallas Cowboys are running real low on cornerbacks. Caitlin Carson, not Marquise Bell, my goodness. Andrew Booth, Izzy, as you guys mentioned. CJ Goodwin, who's your special teams ace. I don't know how many snaps he could get at your typical cornerback spot.
Probably none.
But yeah, it's a real pickle to be in, and I'm interested to see kind of how Zim plays things out on Sunday with that. But because of that,
not only that, but doesn't that make the role of safeties even more important if we're relying on
Miss Girl,
possibly Andrew
what I'm
Booth
transitioning
and
into.
Israel McQuanu at corner?
Well, here's what I'll say is that's exactly what I was going to say. Was this puts a lot of pressure on your safeties, and this is not something new to the safety room throughout the course of the season so far. So, Jazz, I'll defer right back to you for this. With how the safeties have been playing and what you've seen from them so far, what is the one thing, if you had to narrow it down to one thing with the safety play in general that needs to improve because you're so short on cornerbacks, where do you see the biggest problem spot from them right now?
Narrowing it down to one thing?
Yeah, just one thing. You could. Okay, let's do two things.
Handling your assignment count as one thing.
That's a really big thing, but yeah.
It is a really big thing, but it just stands out to me in this situation because it's like, even if it ends up being Kalen Carson and Andrew Booth, it sounds like it's gonna be Andrew Booth and somebody, because he's the only one who's 100%. So if Kalen Carson can't go, it's gonna be him. Thank you.
I just knocked on some wood.
It's gonna be him and Booth. If it's Izzy, I don't know. Maybe they could do Izzy and Kalen. I don't know. Whoever it is gonna be somebody who has either not had as much experience there as we like, or has struggled, right? So yeah, I feel like the safety is being prepared to not only handle what they see as their responsibility, but also being prepared to help is going to be essential. Like, we've got a very secondary related dilemma. There was a dilemma anyway. People were already calling for seeing Wanye in the safety spot. And so now I feel like we're going to see an even bigger need for that. And I just feel like, just looking at the games where the Falcons have struggled, like they're definitely going to want to keep their passing game going. So it's not like they're going to be like, oh, the Cowboys can't handle the run, we'll just run the ball and whoever's in the secondary is going to be fine. Like, no, they're going to be tested. They're going to be tried. So they need to be ready. And it sounds like even if these guys mentally are ready, they won't have a lot of experience back there in terms of what they've done this season.
Aisha, I want to ask you, because you've been, I don't want to say hard on the safeties. You've been honest about their play really since last year. It's something you've been bringing up is just as a whole, it's not where it needs to be, and it's showed. But has the safety play improved or not throughout the course of what you've seen so far this season. What needs the most improvement, if not, and how come Sunday can those issues be tested by the Falcons?
Yeah, I think, watching the guys, there's a lot of confusion. And to me, listening to some of the defensive players and even listening to Trevon Diggs on Micah's podcast and stuff like that, I do believe, and I said this and I took onus about it, is that I do believe that the scheme and Zimmer coming in and implementing this new scheme, I think that we kind of expected for them, especially listening to the players and listening to their response and stuff, is like, oh, they're getting it, they got it, it's down. But when I'm looking at them on tape, there looks like there's some confusion on the back end. Like, to your point, playing your assignment, knowing your position, not being so worried about, what's going on inside. Like, that's because that's what's happening a lot of the time with the Cowboys safeties, is that they are looking at what's happening. And in fairness, that's fair, because they do understand that a lot of players are breaking out and they are the last point of defense. It's human nature to be like, maybe I need to keep my eyes down here. You get caught peeking, somebody's running past you. Both of them have to be involved in the run game. So I think naturally they're looking down there. And yes, they're out of position and stuff. So for me, at this point in the season, 8 weeks in, if I'm Mike Zimmer, I consider that maybe some of the things that they're doing, maybe the guys aren't picking up on as well. And it's not allowing them to play fast and be sure. And in this game in particular, when you're going up against a team that has 3 players that average 10-plus yards per catch, that has the ability to make the big play, that has the ability to attack you downfield, the safeties are going to have to keep a lid on it. It's going to be important for them to not allow, big plays to happen behind them. So to me, I don't think they've improved. I 100% think that their play has regressed. And, in this game, we're going to need to see some of the play that we saw before from them. And even with Donovan Wilson, with this running back tandem, you need him to be, again, as I said last week, the week before that, probably the week before, an eraser in the run game and help out. So it's just you're right that it does put a lot of stress on your safeties. It's obviously heightened now because I feel like they were already a little bit mixed stressed.
What you just mentioned about the possibility of something happening behind them is like my worst nightmare for this team, because Kirk Cousins can do it.
The nightmare before Christmas, quite literally.
Exactly.
Thanksgiving.
I put my tree up, I'm not going to lie.
Kirk Cousins, a lot of people did, apparently. Per my Instagram stories, everybody was putting their tree up yesterday.
I was tired of seeing the pumpkins. They were up since July. It was their time to shine. It's done. That's it.
Thanksgiving is going to stop getting skipped like this. Go ahead. Tell us your
Kirk Cousins is a smart quarterback, right? And I think this might be the first time in his career he's been surrounded by this level of talent. So if he believes that he can make those plays, like if they are not getting enough pressure on him and he believes he has time to get the ball downfield and make some deep ball plays happen, he will do it. And if that gets going, it's game over.
10 TDs with a clean pocket from him. And we've talked about, to your point, the weapons at their disposal, how they use them, the flexibility he has. This is the Cowboys. If they are going to help this secondary, that defensive front, Chauncey Golson, Oso Odigizua, Tyrus Wheat, all those gentlemen that are out there, this has to be a game where you not only get pressure, because they got 12 pressures last week,
right?
But you really affect the quarterback. They got to put hands, feet, toes, whatever on him
not
to
the toes.
What you were saying about the scheme, though, made me think of something, and I can't remember if it was. That's why I was looking at my notes. I can't remember if it was.
She's dying over the piggies comment.
Over the what?
I said not the piggies, and she can't get herself.
Go ahead, Mama. What's your point?
I just be like trying to make a point.
I'm so sorry.
With the inside jokes.
No, I just talked about the little piggies, and she just was dying over here. She's the one that said their toes.
I'll be focused. But I can't remember if it was Mike McCarthy or Schottenheimer. That's why I was looking at my notes because I thought I wrote it down. But they said something about the speed of the game. And I remember because it was another thing that pissed me off being in week 9, talking about the speed of the game. But that is something that comes into play when athletes might think they have a hold on the scheme, but then like game speed is different. And I wonder if that's something that they're struggling with, and maybe something that the safeties are dealing with, just with them trying to be like, okay, we know what we're supposed to be doing. We know what we're supposed to be looking at. Like if you were to give them a paper quiz, they'd have it. But then when you're like, okay, now get on the field and think about it at this speed, like all of a sudden they slow down. Like it's almost like their brains are buffering a little bit.
Right.
Because that's what it looks like a little bit.
And they're also being asked to do things that they were not asked to do in a Dan Quinn scheme.
Facts.
They were not asked, like, I think Malik Hooker was required to do some rangy hash to hash. Like, he needs to be able to get from this point in the field to the other point in the field. Absolutely. But Donovan Wilson has never been asked to do that within a scheme. So he is doing something he has not done for his career. And quite honestly, it's not his game.
Yeah,
it's never been his game. Does he have some free safety ability? Sure. Can he do it situationally? Fine. But that's never been his game. So it's scheme fits matter.
Yes.
Scheme fits matter. And the thing about Mike Zimmer coming in here and only being here a year, it takes away from his ability to put the guys in place that fit his scheme. They're not going to give him, they didn't give him free reign to do that really with this draft class, with these guys. A lot of the guys that that are here they were already here. So he got a
few pieces, but not.
So he's having to navigate that. So that's a lot of what's going on too. Yes.
I also think it's just one of those. Again, you talked about this, I think, on Wednesday, one of those aspects of switching to a new DC that you just were so excited to see the change, and you heard of it throughout training camp and even before, kind of how excited these guys were to work with somebody like Mike Zimmer, and that's no disrespect to Dan Quinn, of course, but they were excited for the new scheme. But what I think you're seeing is coaches, and to your point, Aisha, have a certain type of guy that they like to go after. They like to pursue, whether it be in the draft or free agency or, what have you, to create a team that works with their system, that is proven to work in a system that they create. So for me, what I'm wondering going forward, given, I know this is looking far ahead, guys, but we don't know what will happen next year, quite frankly, the next few weeks, things keep going downhill. But, what I'll say is I'm interested to see if Mike Zimmer is still here as your defensive coordinator next year, what kind of guys, specifically in the safety room, he would be interested in kind of picking up, whether it be a different body type, whether it be a different set of skills that you're not seeing from the current safety room right now. Because I just think that's a big part that we really underestimated with him coming in here. And I personally didn't expect it from the safety room. You have a talented safety room that has a track record of being ball hawks. You just haven't seen it this year. But we're going to put a little pin in this conversation. When we come back, we're going to play a little game that our Jazz came up with. And we're also going to talk about Dak Prescott's mobility, lack of, how that impacts the offense. Stick with us. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw. We'll be right back.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
We know that juicy, cheesy, grilled to perfection burger sounds amazing, but it does sound like something is missing. Pepsi, baby! The yin to this burger's yang. Burgers and Pepsi go together like burgers and Pepsi. This perfect blending of flavors makes every bite of lettuce, every sesame seed on the bun, and every sip of that crisp, refreshing, ice-cold cola a journey to Foodtopia. Burgers, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
The Dickey family always mandated that the only Polish-style sausage worthy of their restaurant must have high-quality coarse ground beef and pork, rich spices, and fresh natural casings. We still serve it to this day, and it's so popular, Dickey's sausage has been named the official sausage of the Dallas Cowboys. The perfect matchup on game day. Dickey's Barbecue Pit. No one outsmokes us. Order at dickeys.com. For groups, call 866-BARBECUE.
Dibs on the ribs.
Hi guys, welcome back. Stay connected with the Dallas Cowboys on your connected TV. Catch up on all of the Cowboys content like player interviews, weekly TV shows, podcast, docuseries like Deep Blue, and much more. Download the Cowboys Now app on Amazon Prime, Roku, and Apple TV. All right, guys, welcome back to Girls Talk, Boys Talk. I'm Jess, that's Jazz, that's Aisha. Ladies, we kind of put a pin in our last conversation talking about the safety room. Jazz came up with a game for us earlier, and I wanted to make sure we played it. It's called In the DMs. We're doing the safety edition, okay? If you could send a message to the safeties, one, or the room as a choice, your choice, who would it be, and what would you say? Jazz, I'm going to start with you.
I'm gonna send a message. I'm gonna send a DM to Coach Zim.
All right, send it.
And or the safety coach whose name I can't remember. But that message is gonna be, hey, what's up? So,
not the what's up.
So, safety room, not really doing what we expect. When's the last time you talked to Wanye? Question mark, question mark. How's Wanye doing? But no, I would like to send a message basically saying, like, hey, the fans and analysts are seeing that there's a little bit of room for improvement, even if you don't want to completely bash the safeties that have been out there. Like you said, what Donovan Wilson is being asked to do is not his game, right? So why not try somebody else? And I think we've seen enough in the past, and maybe Zim hasn't seen it for himself, but I think we've seen enough in the past to give somebody else a shot. So Zim, I'm sliding in your DMs. Let's talk about Wanye Thomas.
Love that for you. Aisha, what's your message? Who are you sending it to, or is it a group chat?
Shoot. I think we in a group chat.
Okay.
I think we in a group chat. I think I'm going to send the Nick Wright gif where he's like, and it's question marks, and be like, what are y'all doing? Question mark. And then I would, on the side, ask Marquise Bell what it feels like to go on from playing almost over 80% of the snaps and then no longer being on the field, and how that affects him.
So you would like at him like you can do on iMessage
Yeah,
now, like
yeah.
at Marquise.
But the group chat is getting the confused.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because what's happening here?
Yeah. I'm going to send a message to Dono because I know there's been a lot of Dono scrutiny here. And I hope this does not come off as me being a homer or anything of that nature. But I hate to see that for Dono, especially because he was such an impactful player. You go back to his previous stats, and I had them pulled up right here.
Yeah, man.
I mean, man, not only did you have to worry about getting sacked by the safety, you had forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, interceptions. I mean, Dono was just an all-around threat as a safety. So for me, I want to send him a message of encouragement to say, hey, Dono, hope you're doing well. I'm really going to need vintage Dono to come back and silence everybody. Because at this point, that's what you want to see. And I really hope Dono uses that fuel because you know he's frustrated with it. You go from being this star defensive player for this team, a key part of this defense, to people questioning your role on this team and if you still deserve it. That's hard for a player. That's hard for anybody. So for me, I'd be like, hey, Dono, how are you? I'm going to need you to bring old school Dono back. And now's the time, buddy.
This is something that happens, but this is something that we talk like.
I just wonder how much of it is scheme.
It's the coaching.
How much of it is Dono, mental.
I can tell you,
physical. It is a little bit of
I think it's
there's a little pot,
the coach in the scheme.
and then you're just
I could
mixing
take
it
a
all up.
screenshot of your message and send it to them. Be like, thought of a different scheme. Like, thought of using this player to his strengths.
Now we're just getting messy with our screenshots and our group messages.
And I will say, from
Aisha takes a screenshot of that, sends it in her group chat.
Yeah,
that
from
gets
my
messy.
understanding, Zimmer does enjoy Dono as a player.
Right.
From my understanding, but this is something we see in football, is a coach comes over, he changes the scheme, and that's what happened with Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, for all intent and purposes, revived Malik Hooker's career, but he really, really helped guys like Jordan Lewis's career, who had been pushed to the back burner all that time. You allowed him to be the nickel corner. He fit in that system. You look at Jaron Kearse when he came over from the Vikings. Yep. He fit in this system, and I do believe that the nickel, specifically, the way that Dan Quinn ran this defense allowed someone like Donald to flourish, and in this system, he's not as close to the line of scrimmage. Yeah. He is out in space. He is doing things that he has not had to do. So it's like, I don't know if it gets better.
Last year, players were just used more to their strength? Like maybe the system worked around the players more, whereas now it's like trying to fit the players into the system.
Dan Quinn came in and established something special in a sense of like he took guys that we wouldn't otherwise, even making Micah a DN. Yeah. Like we got to,
that's why I'm thinking that, because it really felt like he looked at these guys and instead of saying, learn my scheme, he was like,
verbatim.
What do you get out? What do you get at? What do you get at?
That's actually what he said. He said that.
Yeah.
I also feel like Dan Quinn had a niche for kind of not just revitalizing careers, but also understanding your players' strengths and utilizing and fitting into a scheme. Yeah. Like his scheme revolved around those strengths specifically, which it's not a knock to Zim by any means, but what I've heard about kind of how Zim coaches is like, hey, this is my scheme, you're going to fit into it. It's very different.
It's not a knock to Zim. It's just an explanation of why players like Dono look so different compared to what we saw last season.
And both things can work. But again, I think we all really underestimated the transition from a coach like Dan Quinn to Mike Zimmer.
It was a special situation. Yeah. I'm telling you, like the way when Dan Quinn coming in and having, that was his system. Yeah. But for it to work as kind of seamlessly as it did,
and it also evolved as players came on, left.
He got
injuries.
To draft people that fit in.
Well, I mean, that also it increases self-efficacy when you go from feeling like I don't have a role, I don't have useful skills, to somebody putting a spotlight on you and being like, no, actually, you're really good at this, and let me show you how this can help us have a successful season. Right. Like that can boost morale
Players
more than
need to feel supported. Yeah. To your point, they need to feel supported.
Valued. They need to have a purpose.
We feel like that. We feel like that in our own careers.
Exactly.
We feel like that. And
Retweet.
So I think that when you get to the nitty gritty of some of what's going on, number one, they are down a lot of personnel, but also they are in a new scheme. It is a recipe for confusion, frustration, and some of the things that we have been seeing as of late.
And to kind of put a pin in that conversation for to be determined how we discuss it next week. I also want to mention too, when your green dot is kind of in and out due to injury, that screws up your communication. It's just a lot of really unfortunate circumstances happening to this defense. But let's switch to the other side of the ball now, because a big conversation that's been happening, especially this week, is Dak's lack of mobility in the offense. And it's a notable difference to what we've seen in the past. And I really wanted to put a spotlight on it in this show specifically, because I went back and I compared last season's stats through week 8, okay? So this is week 8 last season. Let's take a little time machine back to 2023. This, at that point, also included a bye week. So at this point last year, Dak had 23 carries for 104 yards, his longest run, 40 yards, okay? This year, very, very different numbers. So far this season, Dak has 10 carries for 24 yards, his longest run, 8 yards. So that obviously brings up the question to why such a jump, why such a difference? And we also heard from Jerry Jones this week kind of discussing it, and we can go through the whole quote. I'm sure y'all have seen it on Twitter. But he pretty much said that he doesn't want to risk Dak getting injured. It happens, and it's happened to Dak before. He said, quote, "I wouldn't say it's up there in red letters in the practice facility, don't run, but I would say we want him to be smart about it, and he's being smart about it. I don't want to see him take those kind of hits." However, Jazz and I were talking before the show, and we found the quote from last year when Dak was kind of asked about his mobility. And at this point last year, keep in mind, he was considered slow with those numbers that I just read you, that was considered slow for Dak last year. So he was kind of asked about that. He said, I mean, I'm not as fast as I once was. I don't know if I was ever fast, to be honest. Let's just say when the threat is there, not only do I feel like I'm at my best, but the team. It's another weapon. It's a bonus. That was Dak in 2023. Very different, I guess, tones, if you will, about this topic.
Absolutely.
So, Jazz, I'm going to start with you on this. Do you feel like Dak needs to be more mobile of a quarterback? And do you agree with this sense of kind of being more conservative and safe with him as far as him being more mobile?
I think what he said last year was spot on. And I can understand the hesitation to do it this year because I think there are some people who are looking at it as like, oh, anytime there's not a target there or anytime he's not handing the ball off, he should be running. I don't see him like drastically increasing it. But I do think that there are like one or two times in the past several games where if he were to run the ball himself at an opportune time, it can make a difference in some of those possessions. So that's really all I'm looking for is just like a couple of more times per game and to do it whenever it makes sense. And so, yeah, from that perspective, I would say I would like to see him run the ball more. I would like to see him be willing to run it more. And it's like you kind of have to – this is one of those situations where it's like, you know how I always say, like, I started watching film to add context to some of the stuff that we're talking about? Yeah. It's like this is one of those situations because you start looking at some of the situations he's in when his pocket starts to – I call it disintegrate because it's like it just
that's a perfect word for it.
It's just gone, and it's like okay, where would he run that would actually be safe for him to run? You know, especially considering like how big he is. Where even if he does slide tackle, if someone doesn't stop themselves quick enough, yes, they could hit his upper body, right? Which we don't want. And so there's sometimes where it's like even though it's like we need something to happen to save the play, I'm like yeah, I can see why he didn't run there because it's chaotic. It makes more sense for him to throw the ball away or take the sack as opposed to try to run. But there have been a couple of situations where it looked like he could have run, but for some reason didn't. And I think like not only does it affect the yards that they're not getting in those situations, but I do also think that it affects momentum. And I think the rest of the offense can kind of feel that hesitation, you know? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I to your point, I do think that the way that he said it last year was a great way to put it. But I don't look at it as a bonus with Dak Prescott. As someone that's watched him since college, as someone that this is my quarterback. I know that, you know, we watch Tony Romo and we enjoy Tony Romo. I didn't understand football until Dak Prescott, like understand it in totality. So this is my quarterback. And I know that his running threat is what makes up for just his ability to improvise in general is what makes up for, oh, well, he's not the arm talent as Patrick Mahomes and all these things. His intellect at the line of scrimmage and his ability to improvise are one of the best things that he brings to his game. The running is improvisation. Improvisation. My bad. Dang.
It's Friday.
Yes.
Sunday.
The running is improvisation. And what he does on the run is not necessarily, he always, through his career, has never just looked to run. He's always looked to be a passer down the field. And you don't have that as much right now. Because to your point on the offensive line, which brings me to my second point, last year when we were learning about the West Coast system and learning all this information about QB school, what Mike McCarthy teaches and stuff, one thing they emphasized is that the footwork is married to the reads. So when he's going through his reads and his feet are set and he's going 1, 2, 3, when he hits that back foot on that last read, if it's nothing there that tells him he should go.
And his footwork has been a little bit off this year.
And so when you start talking about the offensive line, I think the offensive line, obviously what's happening with the receivers is a thing, but because they're not getting open on the outside consistently as well. True. But if the offensive line was playing better, when he hits that back foot, he should have an opening. In the West Coast. He should have somewhere to escape to because that's literally how the system is structured. This Cowboys offensive line has diminished in play from last year to this year. It wasn't even that great last year. They had their weak points. I think they were far better in the passing game than the run game last year. But they are not that good in either. So to your point, that pocket is collapsing. I also think about the clock in his head. I The only way I can describe it is that sometimes it's too sped up and sometimes it's too slowed down to where sometimes it's too sped up to where he's going through his reads and he's rushing. He's rushing because he can feel the pocket collapsing. And then there are times where he's going through his reads. He finally gets through them. He sits there for a little bit. And that little slight second of not hitting that back foot, again, talking about his footwork, and not going is literally why when he does decide to go, he's getting caught. And I know a lot of people are speaking to his athleticism and what he's able to do. I'm glad that he's honest about the fact he's not as fast. He's not without any type of athleticism. I don't believe that. I don't believe that he cannot run the ball at all. I don't. Yeah. I see a person that is unsure, but also, too, does not trust his protection. Right. And so I think a lot of what we're seeing has to do with the makeup of how the offensive line is structured, but then also, too, it's some of it might be telling him, you can't risk it right now. It's too much to risk. But I think so much of what we're seeing from him not running, if we're in the West Coast system, he should be hitting that back foot and going if nothing is there. If he's not doing that, then I think that it's the offensive line.
Well, Mike, I'm gonna open. No, that was fantastic. I'm gonna open up the question for both of y'all. Is seeing kind of what you saw last year in the traditional West Coast, aka Texas Coast system that McCarthy had implemented, do you feel like this is still a West Coast offensive system based on what you've seen, but more so with the struggling offensive line, I should say? Do you really feel like you can implement a West Coast system successfully with what you have right now?
No, it's going to be a no for me, dog.
Okay,
you cannot, and that's what you're seeing. You cannot stick to hitches, curls, all these slow progressing routes and concepts when you don't have when you don't have the offensive line to do it. You have to make a change in philosophy to be able to adhere to. We just talked about on the defensive side of the ball, looking at your players and saying, what do you do well, as opposed to saying you're going to fit within this scheme. What you got?
No, I was pretty much going to agree with you. Like there aren't too many solid philosophies that you can implement when your offensive line isn't cohesive. Like it's not only are they not making mistakes, but there are certain times where they're supposed to like play off one another or with each other, and do certain things based on timing that are just not going well. And so it's like, what can you really rely on in those situations? Whatever system it is, the answer would be no. Yeah. You know, so I think it does all start there. And it's just like, you think, like we talked about the footwork, you think about the number of times we've seen just Dak Prescott not even be able to step into his throws. Yeah, it's ugly. And so it's like, he's talked about his own decision making, but I also think that even though nobody said it, I do think he's pressing at times. I think sometimes the decision making is skewed because he's just like, well, I don't know when I'm going to get another opportunity to even chuck the ball downfield like this, so here we go. I feel like there are just so many things at play besides what has been stated plainly. But a lot of it does come back just to the O-line and them just needing to be a lot more sound and a lot more consistent.
Well, there you go. All right, guys, we're going to continue a little bit of this conversation in segment 3, but coming up, we have another game we're going to play that involves you guys watching at home or listening, wherever you're listening. What y'all are saying in the Twitter streets. We're going to find out after this break. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk. Stick with us.
The Dickey family always mandated that the only Polish-style sausage worthy of their restaurant must have high-quality coarse ground beef and pork, rich spices, and fresh natural casings. We still serve it to this day, and it's so popular, Dickey's sausage has been named the official sausage of the Dallas Cowboys. The perfect matchup on game day. Dickey's Barbecue Pit. No one outsmokes us. Order at dickeys.com. For groups, call 866-BARBECUE.
Dibs on the ribs.
We know that juicy, cheesy, grilled to perfection burger sounds amazing, but it does sound like something is missing. Pepsi, baby. The yin to this burger's yang. Burgers and Pepsi go together like burgers and Pepsi. This perfect blending of flavors makes every bite of lettuce, every sesame seed on the bun, and every sip of that crisp, refreshing, ice-cold cola a journey to Foodtopia. Burgers, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
Military members, veterans, and their families with the 2024 Salute to Service collection. From camo patterned hoodies and hats to gear proudly showing off the Dallas Cowboys star alongside the stars and stripes. This collection is more than just football. Visit a Dallas Cowboys Pro shop near you or log on to shop.dallascowboys.com. A Fanatics experience and join our mission. Also say thank you to a veteran. Aisha, thank you. We appreciate your service.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah. All right, guys, we are taking a little trip, if you will, to the Twitter streets. Tweeted earlier asking if y'all had some questions. We did. We're going to rapid fire them. Jazz, let's start with you. What did Danny Lopez have to say today?
Danny Lopez at DannyDans2200 said, Jess, but he's talking to all of us.
He's talking to all of us.
Why is it the Jets win a game to go 3-6 and they are back in it, and we are 3-4 with a chance to get to 500 and everyone counting us out? Do our own media and fans create this narrative? Do our players feel the same? DC4L, always positive. So Danny, first of all, no, your players do not feel like they are counted out. The reason why that's what the narrative is because the Jets are trending on a different trajectory than the Cowboys are. They fired their head coach. They got Devontae Adams. So everybody's looking at what they can do moving forward. Like their fan base is very hopeful. On the Cowboys side, there haven't really been any coaching changes, or not even really. There haven't been any coaching changes. There haven't been personnel changes the way that fans would like to see. So people are kind of looking at the Cowboys as probably doing the same thing or worse. But you're right. Statistically, the Cowboys are still in this. And if you listen to other content creators talk about the Cowboys, they even say they anticipate that the Cowboys will be in the mix. So it's not impossible. Even as pessimistic as I've been, I'll admit it's not impossible. But there are several things that will have to change for the Cowboys to make that happen. So starting this week, if they make those changes, you're absolutely right. They are definitely still in it. And I do think that the tone of that conversation will change if they do win this week.
Beautifully said, my girl. Aisha?
Yeah, my question is from J Star, and when I say star,
there's
it's like
literally
the
a star
actual
emoji.
Star.
We love that. We love J names.
Yes, he or she asks, is there any way we will see more hurry up offense incorporated? Listen, man, the thing about hurry up offense is that your offensive line has to be able to sit and be ready. This offensive line has some pre-snap penalty issues. However, dictating pacing in a game is going to help you regardless. And I do think that you can incorporate hurry up, especially since this team thrives in it. Incorporate hurry up to catch the defense off their heels, catch them in substitutions, catch them in moments where maybe they're not lined up correctly, and take advantage of that. Dak Prescott thrives in that. I would like to see a little bit more of it incorporated into the offense this week as well. So I would hope. But that's all I got.
To be determined.
Yeah.
We already talked about this, but I'm going to answer, oh my goodness, Brandon Laurie's question. My guy, Brandon. Love you, Brandon. He said, if Trevon Diggs and Deron Bland can't go for Sunday, what's your confidence level in Kalen Carson and others slowing down, oh my gosh, the Falcons passing attack that's starting to find its rhythm. For me, it's not so much my confidence level directly in Kalen Carson that worries me. It's my confidence level in the entire backfield right now that worries me a little bit. What I will say about Kalen Carson is he has been on the up and up from that shoulder injury that he had a few weeks ago. My last conversation with him, he was feeling much better. So I don't really feel like that should be an issue anymore. But overall, I mean, when you're missing a guy like Trevon Diggs, he's a tone setter. He's a name that people take serious. So is Deron DaRon Bland, and I think eventually Kalen Carson will be that name, but he's also a rookie. He's having his rookie year struggles. You've seen plays that he's given up and very big plays at very important moments. He has a lot of learning to do. So for me, it's not necessarily just Kalen Carson. It's just the entire situation you're working with a very beat up cornerback room. And I am worried about the Falcons finding the rhythm, but that's why we have to rely on those safeties, which again, we talked about in our first segment. It's a team effort at this point to really compensate for what the cornerback room is lacking right now. Oh, Lord. Okay, real quick, guys, we're going to go around the table. I want you to answer two things. Final score predictions. I guess three things. Who's going to win and who gets in the end zone first, whether that's from the Falcons or the Cowboys. Go.
Cowboys are going to get in the end zone first on a pass to CeeDee Lamb. He's going to get the yak, get in the end zone. And I think to win, they're going to have to hold the Falcons to under 20, and which I think they can. Real quick, when the Falcons lost to the Seahawks, they were held to under 20. Bijan Robinson still got over 100 yards carrying and over 40 yards receiving, but they handled everybody else, and they got the job done, and they won 34-14. So I think for the Cowboys, 28-14 is what I'm going to go with.
Oh, wow.
Barnacles.
That's...
You know I don't be doing predictions. I just say stuff to get a reaction.
I love... You made me go, oh, wow. Miss Aisha.
Oh, my God. I hate doing score predictions so bad, like with the depths of my heart. I don't know. Carry the two. If they start swag surfing on us, I'm going to cry.
Not the carry the two.
All right, yeah, I'll go... I'm going to pick the Cowboys this week. I feel the desperation in the air. I will go 30-25. Something weird.
Okay.
Yeah, like there's a weird safety or something in the game or something. So,
who gets in the end zone first?
Who gets in the end zone first? I think that if Rico Dotto is back this week, I think he scores his first touchdown. I think the Cowboys are going to be able to find some success running the ball, and I would like for him to be able to finish out a drive that he put together, because why not?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go 27-20. Sorry, y'all.
You picking against them?
Yeah.
I picked against them on my last show, I think.
I'm going Falcons. This is a really tough team to beat with the circumstances you have. Good. However, I also would like to point out every time I have picked against the team, they have won.
Oh, sister.
So I'm just throwing that out there. But I do want to say, if the Cowboys can pull off a win against this Falcons team, it's the confidence boost you need, and will tell you how the rest of your season is going to go.
In order for them to do it, they would have to get the run game going, and the defense would have to get it together despite all the injuries. So I do think that would be a good sign if they did win.
Yeah, it would be.
Very emotional.
Here's the thing. I don't really care how they win. I just want to see them win. I don't care if you have to run the ball, pass the ball. Look, gain confidence where you can gain it, take your wins where you can win. But I hate to do this, guys. I don't see them being able to pull this off, especially with how the Falcons have gained momentum.
I don't blame you.
It's a really tough game, and it's not really one that you penciled in to be as tough of a game as it is.
The offense is going to have to show up for them to win.
Yeah,
because the Falcons are going to score.
Yeah, you have to extend your drives.
Like what happened in the third quarter against the 49ers, they can't do that again. They have to score in the third quarter.
I also think adjustments are going to be very huge in this game, and making them accordingly. That's something that I feel like has been struggled with. Yeah, my final score prediction, I'm going to go 27-20 there. Who I think gets in the end zone first? Y'all know my favorite position group, but it's not a secret. I'm giving it to Jake Ferguson.
I would love that. I was going to
So red zone threat, hopefully we see a little bit more improvement in that aspect as well. But that's it for us, ladies. It's been a fun show with you on this Friday. Everyone will be back next week on Monday at 4 o'clock. Hopefully you're talking about a Cowboys win, but if not, we still have plenty to talk about. It's Girls Talk Boys Talk presented by Jigsaw. Y'all have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?